There it was, a smear of red lipstick on the collar of his white shirt. It wasn't mine. I don't even wear red. I stared at it for a long time, holding the fabric between my fingers like it might explain itself, but it didn't. The silence stretched between us as I waited for him to notice what I'd found. When he finally saw me holding his shirt, his face went pale. His eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape route that didn't exist. The truth hung in the air like smoke. Impossible to ignore. It was just a moment, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. It didn't mean anything. Please, just try to understand. I nodded slowly, rolling the word around in my mouth like I was tasting something bitter. Understand, I repeated, watching as relief flickered across his features. He probably thought that was the end of it, that I'd cry a little, maybe throw some dishes, and then we'd pretend everything was normal. But something inside me had shifted. Not loudly or dramatically, it was quiet, like the way ice cracks under pressure. Barely audible, but impossible to repair once it's broken. That night, he snored peacefully beside me, while I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing through memories I now saw differently. The way he'd kissed me goodbye just days earlier, whispering that he loved me while already planning his next betrayal. All those dinners I'd cooked, birthdays I'd planned. The countless ways I'd made his life comfortable while he made a fool of me. He wanted me to understand. Fine. I would understand everything, exactly what kind of man he was, how long he'd been lying, and what he'd been hiding. While he slept, I slipped out of bed and opened my laptop. I created a new folder on my desktop and named it Understanding. Then I got to work. No tears, no screaming, just methodical planning fueled by a calm, steady anger that wouldn't burn out quickly. I didn't know everything yet, but I knew one thing for certain. If he wanted me to understand, I was going to help him understand too. What it felt like to lose everything you thought was secure. The next morning, I acted like nothing had changed. I smiled when he walked into the kitchen, laughed at his tired jokes, and kissed him goodbye like I had every morning for years. I let him believe he was off the hook, that his charm had worked its magic again. It was the easiest way to keep him careless and overconfident. Behind my calm exterior, I was transforming into someone new, someone smarter, more calculating, more patient. I wasn't going to explode in a burst of emotion that would give him ammunition to use against me later. Instead, I was going to build an airtight case, piece by methodical piece. First, I installed a keylogger on our shared computer. He always checked his email there when he thought I wasn't paying attention, typing passwords with the confidence of someone who believed they were invisible. Next, I figured out how to sync his phone's cloud backups to mine. It took some research and trial and error, but eventually I cracked it. Suddenly, I had access to everything, every text message, every photo, every call log, every deleted conversation he thought was gone forever. The digital breadcrumbs of his double life were all there, waiting to be discovered. The evidence was overwhelming. Hotel receipts dating back 3 months, all charged to a credit card I didn't know existed. A secret Spotify playlist called for her filled with romantic songs he'd never played for me. His location history showed midday detours that didn't match any story he'd ever told me about his day. But the worst discovery was his hidden Instagram account. Private, carefully curated, full of photos of her and him with her. They looked happy together, genuinely happy in a way that made my stomach turn. Inside jokes in the captions, comments from her like "best day ever" and "can't wait to see you again." All while he came home to me every night asking what I wanted for dinner. I didn't cry anymore. Those tears had dried up the night I found the lipstick. Instead, I methodically saved every screenshot, labeled every piece of evidence, and organized it all into folders and subfolders with dates and detailed notes. I made backups on USB drives, uploaded copies to cloud storage, and created a paper trail that would be impossible to dispute. Every time I felt the rage threatening to boil over, I returned to the evidence. It grounded me, reminded me that this wasn't just about Pennant, was about purpose. He thought he was being clever, but he was actually careless and arrogant. Most importantly, he'd forgotten one crucial thing. I paid attention. I always had. After gathering enough digital evidence, I decided to reach out to her directly. She was pretty, younger than me by several years, always posing in photos like she was auditioning for a reality show. Glossy lips, perfect makeup, the whole Instagram aesthetic. But she didn't look cruel, just naive and perhaps a bit lost. I didn't come in swinging with accusations or threats. Instead, I kept my message calm and diplomatic. "Hi, I know who you are. I'm his wife. I'm not here to fight. I just want the truth." She read it almost immediately, and I watched as she typed and deleted responses for several minutes before finally replying. "I thought you guys were separated." Of course he'd told her we were separated. He'd probably painted himself as the victim, trapped in a loveless marriage with a crazy, controlling wife who refused to let him go. It was such a predictable story, but it had worked on her. I didn't even need to push for information. Once she realized I wasn't going to attack her, she opened up like a floodgate. They'd met at a networking event where he'd presented himself as a man trapped in a dead marriage. She'd fallen for his charm initially, but she admitted she wasn't really in love with him. "He spends too much money," she confided, always trying to impress me. I was honestly thinking about ending it. "He's kind of exhausting." She had no idea she'd walked into the middle of a carefully planned operation. She thought I'd be an emotional wreck, but instead I thanked her for her honesty. I didn't hate her, she'd been fed lies just like I had. The only difference was, she didn't have a wedding ring binding her to those lies. After our conversation, I sat back and smiled for the first time in weeks. She'd given me dates, timelines, and details I hadn't even asked for. It was like she was unknowingly helping me build my case. She didn't want him anymore, and I certainly didn't either. The difference was, I wanted justice. With the affair thoroughly documented, I turned my attention to the financial aspect of his betrayal. I'd always handled our day-to-day bills, but I'd never dug deeper into his personal spending. I'd trusted him completely, a mistake I wouldn't make again. I started small, reviewing bank statements and credit card bills, anything I could access through our shared accounts. Then I opened every financial file I could find on his laptop, every email from banks and investment companies. Slowly, a disturbing picture emerged. He'd been hiding purchases from me. Expensive perfume, jewelry, romantic dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together. 2 hotel stays listed under business travel were particularly interesting, considering he worked entirely from home. Most shocking was the discovery of a completely separate bank account. I would never have known about it if I hadn't noticed a random deposit from one of his freelance projects going to an unfamiliar account number. A little online investigation led me to a different bank entirely. Using his email password, I reset the banking password and gained access to this secret account. It was like finding a hidden room in our house. He'd been systematically moving money there for months. Small amounts that wouldn't raise red flags, but steady enough to build a substantial nest egg. He wasn't just cheating, emotionally, he was stealing from our joint future to fund his secret life. That $900 bracelet for his girlfriend, paid with a direct transfer from our joint account. His romantic getaways, funded by money that belonged to both of us. I printed everything, organizing it with the same methodical precision I'd used for the affair evidence. Red folders for purchases made for her, blue for hidden transfers, green for cash withdrawals that didn't match any story he'd ever told me. I wasn't just catching him in lies anymore, I was building a legal case that would corner him financially. Every receipt went into my growing collection of evidence. I made digital copies, backed them up multiple times, and assembled a binder that was thicker than our wedding album. He thought my silence meant I was weak, but I was actually winning a game he didn't even know we were playing. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about strategy, about making sure he couldn't weasel out of the consequences of his choices. I was going to hold him accountable for every lie, every hidden purchase, every betrayal, one documented transaction at a time. While maintaining my facade of normalcy, I secretly consulted with a divorce attorney who specialized in high-conflict cases. She didn't even blink when I laid out my evidence: the affair, the hidden accounts, the financial deception. Instead, she smiled with the confidence of someone who'd seen this story before and knew exactly how it would end. "We'll have fun with this one," she said, and I knew I'd found the right advocate. She coached me on everything: what to say, what not to say, how to move quietly without alerting him to what was coming. I followed her instructions like it was a new job, and I was determined to excel. I opened a new bank account in my name only, but I didn't make the mistake of draining our joint account. That would have been too obvious. Instead, I began slowly and carefully shifting money: grocery refunds, freelance income, birthday gifts from family. Little by little, I built my escape fund while he remained obliviously focused on his double life. At night, I made his favorite meals: chicken parmesan, shrimp tacos, homemade cookies. He'd sit across from me, happy and smug, believing he'd successfully managed to have his cake and eat it too. He had no idea I'd already picked the exact date I'd leave, strategically timed for maximum impact. I had my paperwork ready, my evidence organized and backed up, even a small suitcase packed and hidden in my car trunk. He thought he'd fooled me completely. But every sweet smile I gave him was just another inch of rope, and I was almost ready to pull it tight. On the morning of our wedding anniversary, I woke up early and prepared an elaborate breakfast: pancakes, eggs, bacon, everything he loved. I even brewed his favorite coffee, the expensive blend with hints of cinnamon and chocolate that he always requested. He shuffled into the kitchen in his robe, yawning like it was just another peaceful day in our supposedly happy home. "Wow," he said, grinning as he took in the spread. "What's the special occasion?" "Our anniversary," I replied with a bright smile, setting his plate in front of him. He kissed my cheek and sat down, diving into his breakfast with enthusiasm. He didn't notice the cream-colored envelope positioned carefully beside his coffee mug, thick and official-looking, but unassuming enough not to immediately alarm him. Halfway through his second bite, I casually mentioned, "There's something I'd like you to read." He looked up, mouth half full, then spotted the envelope. "What's this?" he asked, already chewing more slowly. "Just something I've been working on," I said, taking a sip of my coffee and maintaining perfect composure. He opened the envelope with the casual confidence of someone who had no idea their world was about to implode. I watched his face as he read the first page, saw the exact moment the words registered. "Divorce papers," he said, blinking rapidly like he might be hallucinating. "Wait, what? You said you'd try to understand?" I nodded calmly. "I do understand. I understand alimony laws very well now." The silence that followed was deafening. He stared at me, speechless, his mouth hanging open with pancakes still stuck to his fork. The confident, charming man who'd been lying to my face for months had suddenly become a confused, frightened stranger. "You think you can just after everything," he sputtered, but I cut him off. "You spent months lying to me. You spent our money on her. You created an entire secret life, and now you're shocked that I won't stick around to smile through it anymore." I stood up slowly, picking up my purse already packed with everything I needed. "I have receipts," I said, leaning in slightly. "Emails, messages, bank transfers, photos, voice recordings. Should I continue?" He swallowed hard, finally understanding that this wasn't an emotional outburst he could smooth over with apologies and charm. This was legal, thorough, and already in motion. "Enjoy your breakfast," I said, opening the front door. "It's the last one you'll ever get from me." He didn't follow me or try to stop me. He just sat there, stunned, holding the divorce papers like they might burn him, and for the first time in months, I really smiled because it was finally over. The trap had been perfectly set, and he'd walked right into it. When we met in court, he arrived wearing a suit I'd picked out for him years earlier, his hair slicked back, projecting an air of calm confidence. He clearly believed his natural charm would save him once again. His attorney tried the predictable approach, painting me as angry and unstable, claiming I was making emotional decisions and trying to punish him out of jealousy. I didn't flinch, neither did my lawyer. She stood up with a folder so thick it could barely close and methodically laid out every piece of evidence I'd collected. Photos, text messages, credit card records, hotel receipts, the secret bank account, gifts for his mistress all paid for, with our joint money. She spoke calmly and clearly, presenting facts without drama or emotion. He stopped smiling after the second set of screenshots were displayed. By the time she reached the financial abuse section, he wouldn't even look up from the table. Then came the surprise I'd been saving. His mistress had been subpoenaed to testify. He had no idea she was coming, and the moment she walked into that courtroom, his face turned gray with panic. She took the stand and confirmed everything that he'd lied to her about our marriage. Told her I was violent and unstable, promised her money and trips and a future together, all while telling me we were working on our relationship. She even brought her own evidence, texts, voice messages, screenshots of him laughing about how easy it was to deceive me. The judge didn't need to say much. When the ruling came down, it was comprehensive and brutal. Full division of assets, heavily in my favor, substantial monthly alimony payments, and penalty fines for the hidden account and financial deception. My lawyer nodded with satisfaction, like she'd just won a complex chess match. He sat motionless, completely defeated, with no fight left in him. It was over, and I didn't feel even a whisper of guilt because this wasn't revenge, it was justice. Delivered methodically and witnessed by the court. The aftermath was swift and decisive. Within a week of the court ruling, his employer contacted me. They'd been conducting a routine audit when some of the financial documents from our divorce case raised red flags. Asset hiding, misuse of joint funds, questionable freelance arrangements, it all came to light. 2 days later, he was terminated. No severance package, no references, just a cardboard box and a security escort out of the building. The job he'd been so proud of, the one that had given him the confidence to think he could get away with anything, was gone. His mistress disappeared. Around the same time, deleting her social media accounts and cutting off all contact. Apparently, dating an unemployed man facing financial ruin wasn't part of her dream romance. She'd never been in it for love, just the lifestyle he'd promised her with money that was never entirely his to give. He tried reaching out once, using a different phone number to get past my blocks, saying he needed closure and wanted to talk. I didn't respond. He ended up moving in with his brother, trading his comfortable condo for a pull-out couch and the daily reminder of how completely his life had fallen apart. As for me, I sold our house, the one I'd cleaned and decorated and filled with memories that had all been tainted by his lies. I used my settlement money to buy a smaller, brighter place that was entirely mine. Everything in it was fresh and new, chosen by me alone. I opened a new bank account with only my name on it. And every month I smile when I see the Alimony depositor regular reminder that I didn't just survive his betrayal. I turned it into my advantage. I sleep better now, laugh more freely, and eat at restaurants alone without feeling self-conscious. A few months later, I took a solo trip to Italy, no agenda. No one to check in with, just me and a passport, and the freedom to go wherever I wanted. I wandered through Rome, took cooking classes in Tuscany, and got a small tattoo behind my ear simply because I could. One evening, while watching the sunset from my hotel balcony in Positano, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Can we talk?" I knew it was him, probably using yet another burner phone after I'd blocked his previous attempts. I stared at the message for a moment, then blocked the number and put my phone away. That was my answer, not words, but action. No explanation, no closure, just me living my best life thousands of miles away from the mess he'd created. When he asked me to understand his affair, he expected tears, begging, maybe a dramatic confrontation. What he got instead was silence, patience, and a plan that systematically dismantled everything he thought he could take for granted. He thought I was too soft, too trusting, too nice to fight back effectively. What he didn't realize was that being quiet doesn't mean being weak, it means watching, learning, and preparing. He wanted me to understand, so I did. I understood the law, evidence collection, financial strategy, and exactly how to serve divorce papers with a side of his favorite breakfast on our anniversary. Now I sleep peacefully in a bed he's never seen, in a home built on honesty instead of lies. He lost everything he'd built on deception, while I gained everything I'd earned through patience and truth. If you're reading this, and you're the one being betrayed, remember, you don't need to scream or break things or beg anyone to stay. You just need a good lawyer, a smart plan, and the kind of quiet determination that doesn't give up. And if you're the one doing the cheating, be careful when you ask someone to understand, because some of us actually will. And will make sure you understand exactly what that means. Signed, happily single, financially free, and unapologetically strategic.